Matt Campbell finally got on a mic and answered the question I have been wondering all week long. What happened against Cincinnati?
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Nick Marvis. Thank you so much for making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Be sure to hit subscribe down below so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we're going to talk first about Matt Campbell's media availability. We're going to break down the Cincinnati game first. We'll spend a few minutes on that. We're going to start to transition and talk about, obviously, the upcoming game against Colorado. What were Matt Campbell's thoughts on that? Then our second segment, I'm going to take a look at Colorado, let you know what Colorado has done this season. And finally, we'll chat about how important is this game for Iowa State. Spoiler alert, it is very important. Very, very, very important. Let's start with Matt Campbell, though. All right, let's loop it back to the beginning here. And yes, I understand at some point, Cincinnati was last week. We've got to move on. But a couple of these comments by Matt Campbell, I think, are very much worth talking about. And it also allows us to be able to talk about all the other things he said about this team. The first thing, I've got three big things. The first thing he talked about was this team was really, they didn't have it for the first quarter and a half. And I believe the question was about momentum. So I'm not sure if he was saying they didn't have it or if they didn't have momentum. It could be either one, honestly. And they're pretty interchangeable, so it doesn't really matter. They didn't have it for a quarter and a half. The ability to get back into the game, however, was what Matt Campbell commended as far as the Iowa State Cyclones. And I think that's totally valid. I think that there is a very real side of the ball, if you want to call it that. I put a lot of value into Iowa State not giving up on this game, on that game against Cincinnati. That got ugly fast in the first half. I mean, it got out of control way faster than I thought. I did not expect it to look like that. And the second half was a totally different half. It was really a tale of two halves, about as true as it possibly could have been, other than Iowa State putting up 30 points in the second half. So the fact that Iowa State and all of the players wearing Cardinal and gold were able, to reframe their minds and stay in the game when it all looked so bleak, I think is a very good sign of Iowa State football, where they're at mentally, where the coaching staff has these players. I think that's really positive. I agree with Matt Campbell on that one. This question, I didn't love how he answered this, but I am going to bring it back up because we talked about this a little bit yesterday. When he was asked, basically, what were the problems on defense? How'd you diagnose those after you went back through film? And he said, look, those were diagnosed in the second half. Just like completely skipped over the problems on defense. And he did kind of semi-answer it in a different answer. And he was kind of like, yeah, like we were just off. It was an execution issue. It wasn't an effort issue. It wasn't a knowledge issue. We were just like an inch here, an inch there. I don't necessarily agree with that, but look, I'm not the head coach of the Iowa State Cyclones. So I'll stay in my lane. I trust him there. But I will say the thought that Iowa State did course correct for that second half, I agree with wholeheartedly. I definitely think the second half of that Cincinnati game is a lot closer to the defense we'll get for the rest of the season than the first half was. Now, I'm not saying we're going to allow an average of 7 points or whatever per game for the rest of the season. I'm not saying that. I don't think this defense is going to be that good, and that's why I spent basically all day yesterday. If you haven't seen it, go check it out, because I think it's a very valid point, talking about how this offense needs to come onto the scene for Iowa State. This needs to be, in my opinion, the year where Iowa State just decides, you know what, we're going to go out and score 45 points a game. We're going to do what it takes to get that done. I think that there is a lot of validity in that. I'm not going to lie to you. But also, the defense in the second half looked a lot better. I will give Matt Campbell credit for that. And that does give me hope for the rest of the season. The first half, I genuinely, I was like, we might just be done. This might be the last game of Iowa State football. I don't know how else to look at this. This is atrocious, but things were cleaned up. I felt a lot better about that. Matt Campbell, it seems like something clicked, and maybe he grabbed it, maybe he didn't. Whatever that lightning was in the bottle, I'm not sure if he has the bottle secured or not, but I'd love to think that he has at least some sort of concept of what happened between the first and the second half. That shift, we need to play obviously defense more like the second half if we want anything to go right the rest of this season. And obviously we'll talk about that more in the third segment. Finally here, last big point before I fly through a few of his others that he talked about. We finally kind of got the answer to the thought process behind going for 2 before the half and then kicking the PAT after. It was, I believe, a question from Alec Bussey. So shout out to Alec Bussey, been on the show, asking the hard questions. Feel like we don't get a lot of reporters asking the hard questions. I feel like there are a lot of hard questions that need to be asked. And we didn't get a follow-up here, so I don't have the full story. But the thought process, if you haven't seen it, was that Matt Campbell said, going into the half, we were chasing points. Coming out of the half, so they went for 2. Coming out of the half, we weren't necessarily chasing points. We scored really fast. We thought with how much time was left on the clock, we didn't really want to end up behind the sticks. Look, I get that. That makes complete sense. Honestly, I will say I have no problem with them kicking a field or the PAT coming out of the half, because you're now like you're down 9, right? So you're now within a touchdown and a field goal of winning the game. Like, you don't really need to go for 2 with basically, I don't know, have the play-by-play in front of me, so I assume it's at least a quarter and a half. I think that's a reasonable amount of time to not end up in a situation where you're either 1 score or a touchdown and a field goal from tying it. I think that's okay. I have no problem with that. The problem I have is with going for it on 4th and a long 1, or it might have even been more than that, 4th and 2 or whatever, from your opponent's 19-yard line when you have an injured kicker and you can't just whip out a 60-yarder down later in this game. You need to kick that field goal. You end up walking away without any points. I don't have the answers to why he made that decision, but the thought process in you don't need to chase to get to that 8-point mark with, 12 minutes left in the third or whatever it was. I agree with that. I think that's totally valid. And it's nice to know that he at least had some thought process going through, some sort of decision-making there. I will say really quickly, I'm not going to really touch on injuries too much. Matt Campbell talked about it, but we learned that is practically worthless. Carson Hansen is quote-unquote questionable. A few other players are questionable as well. I am now just assuming that they're out until Saturday. I have learned like in weeks past, it's just not worth playing that game. So we're looking towards Abusama. And I think even maybe Dylan Lee is maybe the guy. It's kind of number 2 right now in the running back room. But Campbell obviously had high praise for Abusama. He's had that all off season long. He's got talent in the backfield, leads consistency for the running back room was what he talked about. Talked about his development as a running back and all of that. Did mention, though, that Rocco is back on the field, back at practice. That one didn't really sound like an injury situation. He was like almost proud and like shocked that Rocco is back, ready to roll. I think a lot of people can maybe settle, kind of settle their nerves hearing that. I think that's actually a good thing. I think that is super cool. Scary. But also super cool. Whatever. Final point here for Matt Campbell. Very interesting answer when asked about coaching in altitude. How do you handle that? And he basically just said, we ignore it. And it's kind of, to me, it's kind of like the delusion, ignorance is bliss. Like, if you don't know it can affect you, then it won't affect you, whatever. That's not the case, but it is kind of like the way he went about it. And he was like, we have to recover from that game. You go and play in Colorado. And it's whatever. And then when you come back, it becomes a problem. So I'll be very interested to see what happens. It feels like it's all about the post Dublin, post Colorado this season seems to be the story. I'll be very interested to see how that plays out the rest of this season. But apparently Matt Campbell not too concerned about actually getting ready for the altitude of Colorado. However, Colorado is a danger to Iowa State, who they'll face next. And we're going to break down Colorado coming up right here after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda, and Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa upholstery, and you can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. Trust me, I get it. Really do. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting, and you just link all your accounts in minutes. See clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Maximize investments, increase your saving rate. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. That's use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. Colorado is not the team that they were last season. Let's not get it twisted. Let's not get too crazy here. I don't think Colorado is going to be making the college football playoff. Could be wrong. But I don't think that they will be. That does not mean that Iowa State can just look past them. We'll talk about the implications of this game down in about 10 minutes down the road here. But let's talk first about Colorado. Who is Colorado? How can we best get to know this team? Let's really acquaint ourselves with the Buffaloes out west. Colorado currently 2-4. Not a great situation for the Buffs. Obviously, Deion Sanders keeps this team in the news cycle as much as he can, but boy, the play on the field is just not. It's not translating. It's not going well. And I'm not trying to give them bulletin board material. I'm just looking at what they have produced. I have nothing to say about the team itself at this point, what we could see. Right now, we're literally just looking at what they've done. Quick recap for you. Colorado starts the season with a loss to Georgia Tech. Then they beat Delaware. Then they lose to Houston. All right, so those first two games at home, 27-20, 31-7 final scores. Right, 7-point loss to Georgia Tech. What would that be? 26? Is that the math on that? 26-point win over Delaware. They do lose to Houston, though. Now they're on the road, and it's a 16-point loss, but not a great look. Not a great look. At this point, maybe we're still wondering, is Houston really good? Maybe they just started slow against Georgia Tech, whatever. After the loss to Houston, they come back home. They defeat Wyoming by 17 points, 37-20. So now, at this point, Colorado's 2-2. Feels like there could be something here, right? Let's go ahead and move on to the next game, where they lose to BYU 24-21. And then they just most recently on the road lost to TCU 35-21. Now, that's not ideal. I'm not going to lie to you. That is not ideal for Colorado, obviously. In the conference, not doing so hot. Even in the non-conference, not looking great. I mean, I guess really it's only Georgia Tech that stands out in the non-conference. But either way, still a 37-20 win over Wyoming. And I guess, what is Wyoming? What can we really do? What can we really grab from that? But looking at the box scores of these games, of these of these contests, Colorado doesn't look super impressive. Okay. I would like to just reiterate, Colorado is not a team that Iowa State can look past. But I just don't think Colorado is on the same level that they were last season. I would like to point out, I've got 2 of these games. Is it 2 of these games? Against BYU, Colorado goes up 14-0. That's I feel like something. That's worth something, right? Well, you don't come away with that win. Against TCU, yes, helped out by a missed field goal, but they start the game up 14-0 in that one as well. So I will just throw this out there. Maybe don't be too panicked if Colorado goes up 14-0 on Iowa State, come Saturday. Maybe we don't need to panic yet. Now, it's never a great feeling, but we do know that this team can handle that kind of adversity, can bounce back from a situation like that. And it looks like Colorado doesn't exactly hold their own in the same way, right? Obviously ends up with they score one more time against TCU, and TCU so the best way you can look at it is TCU goes on a 35-7 run to get that win, and BYU goes on a 24-7 run. That's not a great look. Not a great look for Colorado. Now, I do believe, based on what I have seen, that Colorado will be trotting out Caden Salter at quarterback. That is my current belief. If I am incorrect, let me know in the comments below or at Nick_Marv on Twitter. Love interacting with you guys. Feel like we got a really great community going on here. I will say that it seems like there may be some work that needs to be done at the quarterback position. I just don't know if it's quite there yet. It feels like we maybe have a little bit of a ways to go. Now, that being said, there are certainly games where Salter looks very good, right? Against Wyoming, he throws 18 of 28 for 304 and 3 touchdowns. 94.8 QBR. That's pretty good. Now, against Houston, I don't know if I'd say the same. 19 of 35. Did get 204 through the air, but 1 touchdown, 2 picks. That's a QBR of 27. Against BYU, comes away with a QBR of 65. Threw for 119, 1 TUD, 1 interception. Only threw 16 times in that game. And then against TCU, walked away with a QBR of 63. 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. Not great. Now, mobile, so that could be a problem for Iowa State, but in general, I am not as threatened by Caden Salter as I have been in the past. Oh, Ryan Staub actually threw the Houston game. Excuse me. I knew I had to double check that. So scratch the Houston game. Salter did throw against Wyoming for that 18-28 for 304. He did throw against BYU with that 65 QBR. Did throw against TCU for that 63 QBR, but did not throw against Houston. Let's get that clear. I missed that one. That is entirely on me. Now, as far as a rusher goes, 7 rushes for 11 yards against TCU. Against BYU, ended up coming in. Oh, excuse me. I was looking at the receiving. I was like, he's not even on here. 17 rushes for 49 yards. And against Wyoming, in that huge game that he threw for 304, he was their leading rusher with 86 yards on 11 carries. So I think that that's where he's going to get Iowa State more so than through the air, and which is crazy. That is a wild thing to say, considering going into last week, our main concern was the secondary. But I think we saw that the ground game, we've got to stop that first. That's got to be priority one. Overall recap of Colorado on initial inspection. We will hopefully talk to Locked On Buffs this week. I will do a deeper dive into their games. What are they good at? What are they not? But based on what I'm seeing, Colorado isn't great, but that does not mean we can look past them. They're not what they were last season, but they're not some, high school team trotting out there. Still going to be danger. Caden Salter seems to be the guy at quarterback, and I'm not as concerned through the air as I am on the ground. My initial guess is I think Iowa State will win this game, but I don't think it'll be a huge problem. I don't think this will come down to the last second. That being said, they could lose this game. How detrimental to the season would it be if Iowa State lost? We'll talk about that coming up here in just 1 second. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement, of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. And the new injury reboot feature, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Let's talk about Iowa State taking on Colorado and how this might be the biggest game of the season for Iowa State. I know. I don't think anyone had this. It feels like we've been doing this every week. It's like, is this a must-win game? Yes. Every game is a must-win. What? Yes. It's like in the NBA Finals. They're asking these game 2. Is this a must-win game? Actually, no. We can afford to drop this one. Like, the only possible time that I think they would ever answer that is up 3-0. And even then, it's like, no, we don't want to give them any hope. It's a must win. We must win this game to win the finals. Like, what are we talking about? So feels like we've been saying this a lot. This is not a game we had circled going into the season, but this is going to prove to be a big one. Look, I hear you. I hear all of your comments down below. I appreciate them. I hear all of you tweeting at me. I appreciate that as well, at Nick_Marvel on Twitter. Don't forget it. But I do think this is a big one for Iowa State, because not only from the avenue, from the angle of making the college football playoff or making the Big 12 championship game, like, that's a gimme. And I do think that there is a world where Iowa State needs to win out to make the Big 12 championship. Absolutely has to win out to make the college football playoff if they're not going as a conference champion. I obviously they would lose in the conference championship game. Like, that wouldn't be a part of the winning out that I'm talking about. But I don't think that Iowa State can lose another game and then not go as a conference champion. I don't see that happening. It's a very complicated sentence, because then they could also still lose in the conference championship game, and that would be their second loss. But you get what I'm getting at there, right? For the most part, Iowa State can't afford to lose unless it's in the conference championship game. And even then, right? So looking at this game from that perspective, it's like, duh, they need to win. And I am not going to go into a game the rest of this season. I can guarantee you this right now. I'm not going to go into a game and be like, yeah, this is not a big deal. This is whatever. No, I am not going to say that. I think Iowa State can handle every team that remains on their schedule. I think they can win every game they have left. And I think that they're all practically of Super Bowl caliber. Now, if Iowa State drops 3 games in a row, I'm not going to be talking about the game in the same way. I'm not going to be talking about Iowa State winning for the sake of going to the Big 12 title game, because those hopes and dreams will have been crushed. But obviously, we'll be talking about for different reasons. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, right? We don't even need to focus on that. As far as Colorado goes, we can look at it from the CFP, from the Big 12 perspective, but that's boring. Let's look at it from the perspective of what this team needs to compete the rest of this season, right? When you look at the schedule, it's very easy to look at it as if it's a coloring book, and it's not actual, segments of time and games being played. At least for me, the way I look at it, it's very easy to like block it and chunk it and red versus green for win, loss, home, away, whatever. But when you feel like the time flowing through that schedule and you feel the travel, the first thing you're going to look at is the first 4-game stretch of the season, because we talked about it so much. Now, we don't need to break down what happened in those first 4 games. Quick recap: win, 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 right? That's what happened. But at the end of it, it was a different team, right? The team looked very tired. No excuses. You got to go out and play ball. But that was, I felt like, the reality. Temperature, I think, also played a role. But you get to the bye week 4-0, And that was what I was talking about. I feel like a lot of the team in some ways felt that way. I believe that was an Eskelson helmet car interview. I can't remember who it was that was in that, but somebody was riding around the helmet car talking about, hey, we got to the bye week 4-0, riding around Jack Trice. And I think that there was an element of like Matt Campbell talked about, this is going to be a huge hurdle. First 4 weeks, just got to get through them. Iowa State gets through them 4-0. Then you come off the bye and you do get the win. I think that was a huge, obviously, I actually have the picture of the whiteout game on my monitor that I am looking over. And when I'm not looking directly into your soul and I look away because it feels like I kind of have to, I'm looking at the whiteout game. Genuinely, I'm not even joking. And it actually makes me happy. This is my happiness in a picture. Anyway, that was a big win for Iowa State. Emotional win. Coming off the bye was, I think, pretty important. It was a undefeated Arizona team, a team that we didn't know maybe they would be really good. Either way, you get that win. Now you're 5-0, and then you lose to Cincinnati. And in the way that they did too, it was ugly. There was huge hits. I mean, Rocco was hit by a missile in that game, a true missile. Unreal. Right. And then obviously just you come up short and the huge points you gave up in the first half, and like the clips are circulating. It wasn't ideal. Now the team has to respond, because I'm not saying that if Iowa State loses this game, they're going to lose the rest of the season. But if Iowa State doesn't find a way to get their mojo back, I'm personally a little bit frightened of going into a bye week on a 2-game skid. Just as far as mental goes, as far as, you're going to be hearing it. It's going to be loud. I think this one is a very important win for the mojo of Iowa State football. I think this is a very important win for momentum. They were talking about in the press conference, as I said earlier in this, is that real? Yes, momentum is very real. Just because you can't quantify it doesn't mean that it's not real. And Iowa State, I think, does need to feed off of momentum to some degree to capitalize on what they have in front of them, as far as roster, as far as schedule that remains, as far as coaching staff, like everything about this team. I think we've got a perfect storm in front of us. Not obviously with injuries, it's a whole different thing. But we've got a very, very good team, very, very good coaching staff here. We got to make the most of it. And I think you need a little bit of momentum to do just that. You get your teeth kicked in the first half against Cincinnati, a game that I don't think anybody was looking at before the season. I stand by that. Now, I think a lot of people are looking at Cincinnati differently, and we'll see how that whole game ages over the course of the season. But you get your teeth kicked in the way they did against Cincinnati, especially in the first half. Looked good in the second half. First half, you're going to think about that. You're absolutely going to think about that. How do you respond? How do you respond in your next game? If you just kind of go through the motions in the second game, the mojo's not there. The momentum isn't there. Even if you walk away with like a 2-point win, it's just something's going to be off. Iowa State needs to go out and win this game. Iowa State's the better team. We'll talk about this the rest of the week, but Iowa State is the better team. They just need to go out and win this game. Get some mojo back. Make some big plays. Nothing too crazy. We don't need a 99-yard touchdown here. We don't need you taking a sack on the 20 all the way back down to the 1 to be able to throw a 99-yard touchdown pass like I do in college football. Rocco, please do not do that. I don't think my heart will be able to take it. All right? But we just got to go out there, play sound football, play, fundamentally, play with discipline, play with details, as Matt Campbell is saying. Get our mojo back, and then you can use the bye week to get the fundamentals back, as Matt Campbell was saying after the Dublin kind of stint, that 4-game stretch. This is a very important game for Iowa State. If they drop this game, I am immediately concerned. Very concerned. Not because necessarily of the value of what's the caliber of opponent they're facing. That's not really what I'm talking about. Looking past even just Colorado being Colorado. Looking at this spot in their schedule based on what has happened this season, what happened last week, where they are going into a bye week, and what remains, this is I hate it. It's a must-win game. It's a must win. It's a must win. Like, I can't believe I just said that, honestly. That's what it is, though. That's what it is. It's also a little bit of a must-win situation. It's not the best term for it, but you hitting subscribe down below, it's a win-win for you. For me, it's free. We're proving it's a Cyclone state. It's also like you kind of got to do it. It's like polling. It's calling your name. Shout out to you for making it to this point in the episode. It's completely is one of my. I love this. I love this. I love every single one of you guys. You guys are the best. That being said, man, we need that win. I'm still thinking about it. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.